As many of you know, I've been thinking through the scriptures and our interaction with the scriptures through this Lent and how important they are for us as Christians. And coming out of prayer in our prayer book, a collect that asks the Lord to give us grace to hear, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest the scriptures. And I want to talk today a little bit about learning the scriptures, what we mean by learning the scriptures. You know, hearing is one thing, doing, of course, is another. I talked a little bit about that when I talked about marking the scriptures. But learning is yet another thing as well. To learn is to learn something more broadly. So, for example, we hear the scriptures every Sunday in church. In our tradition, we usually read several lessons every Sunday. But those lessons are short passages, always taken out of a larger book or gospel or epistle or whatever it is. We hear that little section, but we don't necessarily hear the fullness, the whole of it, because of course we don't have time every week to do that. So learning actually helps us understand that even whatever we hear on a Sunday is set within the context of a broader articulation, a broader description of, for example, Paul's theology of the law, which we read in Romans. Or the passages we have from the Gospels, the life of Jesus. So learning the scriptures really help us actually take what we might read on a Sunday or in any other kind of context and help us understand more broadly. Like help us understand what are the main themes of, for example, Matthew's Gospel. What does Matthew sort of dwell on in a way that John does not, and vice versa? You know, what are the themes of the book of Galatians? What are the themes of the book of Exodus? What are the big things that matter? What are the things that happen again and again and again? For example, in the book of Hebrews, if you read it as a whole, you'll notice that there's an ongoing theme of better. There's a better word. There's a better priesthood. There's a better salvation that's in Christ Jesus. And so there's that word better happens again and again, and you understand the theme that's in the middle of the broader book. So learning is really about a more focused study. Now there's a number of ways, of course, that you can do that. You can do that by reading the scriptures yourself as a whole, sitting down and reading an entire book, for example, like maybe Galatians or one Lent. All I read during Lent was literally the book of Hebrews, and that was it. And I spent time consistently with it. And sometimes I read that whole book in one sitting through several times during that Lent. So there's some personal study that we can do to help notice and pay attention to the things that are in the scriptures. There are Bible study books that help us to reflect on. There are commentaries that help us reflect on what's happening in a particular book. And of course, there's a sort of a traditional thing that we've all probably been part of, which is a Bible study where we gather with other people and we read through a book, and we often have a guide that asks us questions, but we also listen to each other, to the things that they are noticing and the themes and the rhythms and what's going on in the book. And in doing so, we understand the scriptures in their context. Even this passage in the context of the broader thing, but even that book, maybe let's say 1 Timothy, that book within the broader context of the fullness of the scriptures. It's about deeply understanding what the scriptures are saying and learning them and actually applying some effort to knowing them better. One of the things that, of course, the scriptures are for us is a way to learn and understand the message of the gospel, the truth of Jesus Christ to us. And sometimes that requires a little effort on our part to engage and to learn. So as you continue to live out the rest of this Lent, but certainly the rest of your Christian life, whether that be short or long, there are great opportunities to continue to be engaged with the learning of the scriptures at your church, on your own, with some books. I encourage you to continue to learn the scriptures and be shaped and formed by them.